Satoshi and I had what? All my well-planned actions throughout the day turned out to have been nothing more than a reenactment of what Satoshi had done. Satoshi, had he really been in the same situation as I was now? The friends he had gotten along with had changed, and suddenly, for no reason, at least none that I had noticed, planned to kill him. And fearing for his life as I am, he got the bat to protect himself and carried it around every day to practice his swing. Then one day, so suddenly, he transferred. My blood went cold, causing a prickling sensation to course through my veins. Starting to near my heart, I radiated outwards from the top of my head and the soles of my feet, chilling every part of me without recourse. What does she mean by transfer? What does she mean by transfer? Was Satoshi still at wherever he transferred to? Was he the only one who could be able to understand me? Would he be able to tell me why it all ended up like this? More importantly, where did he transfer to? What does she mean by transfer? What does she mean by transfer? Before I knew it, I was at my front door. The bridge knob was hard to turn. Was nobody home? It wasn't that of an occurrence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single key attached to my fur seal keychain. I stepped into the entryway. Just as I was about to take off my shoes, a chill ran down my spine. Someone had entered right behind me. Oh no. Like a classmate messing around, standing right up against my back. You're kidding, right? It had to be my imagination. Logically speaking, it was impossible for someone to be able to hide their presence within my personal space all the way through the door. But there was undoubtedly someone behind me. Hey now, Keiichi. How do you know that they're there even though they're behind you? Because I could hear the sound of flowing hair. There's no other reason. I hear that sound. That was the presence. Because I could hear the sound of them blinking. Keiichi, my bar, there's no way you could hear that. That was mostly instinct than anything that was warning me of the presence. Common sense was telling me that it was just my imagination. It was just my imagination. There was nobody behind me. I began to erase the mental image of the eerie figure standing behind me. But at the same time, I asked myself, if there was a nobody, then what was I feeling? As an uncomfortable sensation crawled up my spine. Actually, wouldn't it be better if there was somebody there? If there was nobody there when you turned around, would you be able to accept that? I'd be able to answer all those questions just by looking behind me, but I didn't have enough courage to even do that simple task. Alright, I could try speaking to them. The person behind me might answer me. It was a random thought. I didn't care how I went about it, just so long as I didn't have to turn around. If I'd calmed down and thought about it, I would have known that that wouldn't have solved anything. Who is it? I spoke in such a hoarse, broken voice that I couldn't believe it was my own. I could almost feel them contemplating their response. I felt it. There was no way I should be able to do that. Calm down, Keiichi. It's all in your head. That time I was certain I heard it. As if hesitantly trying to answer my inquiry, I was certain I could hear the sound of somebody in Haley. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it clearly. It was a girl. A young girl. I didn't know who, but a tiny speck of courage in me, however reckless it was, inspired a primal yet fitting solution to this current predicament. A scream. All the force in my body just released from my lungs and through my throat, ceasing all thought processes in my head. Suppressing all my thoughts and emotions, I began to collapse in a house of cards, somehow managing to twist my body and look back as I did so. It was definitely there. Right there. Somebody was there. Until the moment I had turned around, until I brought the area behind me into a field of vision, they were definitely there. Falling face up, my eyes traced the remnants of the presence suspended in the empty space. It couldn't be that they were invisible. They looked like they weren't there, but they were still actually standing there. As I screamed, all the emotions I was holding back burst free into a violent wave. However, I was decidedly calm as my emotional dam collapsed. The turbulent wave pent-up emotions was skillfully diverted into a torrent of aggression. That emotion was definitely required to extricate myself from the bizarre situation happening in front of me. In my state of heightened lucidity, I trusted my body to the fury. The metal bat had firm in my hand as if drawn there by a magnet. A mid-level sweep would be the hardest attack to dodge. I remember reading something like that from a book of swordsmanship or something. I brandished my will to fight. The afterimage of that amalgamation of metal slashed as it swung left to right, beating against the entryway. The bat slammed into the right wall, the tip of rebounding violently. Very calmly, I transferred the force of the rebound into a sweep to the left. The door of the shoe cupboard was split into pieces. Those two swings whiffed through the nearby space, but they seemed to have a great psychological impact on the enemy. I could feel the panic emanating from that space. The attack wasn't the only thing required. I extracted the bat from the cupboard it was embedded in and screamed as I spun my entire body around in a large arc. Rah! My screams shook the air, imbuing my ferocious swing with even more destructive power. Brick. Without mercy or restraint, my violent strike, with certainty fatal force behind it, shattered at the top of the cupboard. None of my attacks struck my enemy, but my ferocity had certainly seemed to impact them. Breathing heavily, my entire body soaked in sweat. The invisible enemy, there but not there, dispersed. And when I was certain that the enemy retreated, I locked the front door and latched the chain. No, I had feigned retreat and was now inside my house. Once again, I channeled my aggression to search the house for the presence. But it was gone. I had succeeded in fending it off. In that moment, the tension drained from my body and I let out a deep sigh of relief. All the emotions I'd been holding back chaotically merged together and flooded out. Hodgepodge of fear, accomplishment, and disbelief all mixed together and began to flow through my body. Unable to deal with each individual feeling, I beat them all back with my strongest exhaustion. Even in this moment, I remained composed. After checking all the doors throughout the house were locked, I went up to my room on the second floor and closed the curtains. I straightened my back and tilted my head a little. After clearing my mind of my idle thoughts, I managed to calm down even more. What was that at the front door? There was definitely something there. Thinking about it, maybe it was just an apparition I dreamt up in my confused state, but I really didn't think that was the case. Calm down, Cage, my brow. Compose yourself. But no matter how calmly I thought about it, what just happened wasn't a figment of my imagination. It was obviously a supernatural phenomenon, and without a doubt, something was behind me. It wasn't some sort of illusion I saw amidst my confusion and disorientation. Proof? I had just one piece. When I asked who is it, they inhaled as if they were about to answer. That sound had clearly reached my ears. The situation I was in right now was still unclear. Either I had been possessed by a supernatural phenomenon known as Oishiro-sama's curse, or this was a ruse by the villagers who believed in it and were imitating it. Either way, their motives were unclear. The roundabout way it had been done was also still a mystery. If it was perpetrated by humans, that would mean admitting it, that it was Rena and the rest of them doing it, but that would be solvable. Oishi-san and the rest of the police would surely arrest my enemy. But if the manifestation of Oishiro-sama's curse, I wonder what would happen. Oishi-san very clearly declared that curses didn't exist. At that time, those words were pretty dependable, but things as they were now, with the rising possibility that the perpetrators were not human, he suddenly seemed quite unreliable. If I told Oishi-san the work of Oishi-sama's curse, what would happen? I couldn't imagine his reaction, but it would go without question that a void would expand rapidly between myself and Oishi-san. With me having few allies to begin with, and with not being able to confidently declare whether or not it was a curse or not, there was no merit to doing that. I better keep the facts of what happened in the doorway to myself. It'd be better if I didn't add what happened to the memo behind the clock. There was still ever so slight possibility that I was actually confused when I thought I was composed and I was going to berserk in the entryway. How wonderful would that be if that was really what happened? Would I be able to refute Oishiro-sama's curse? But if I denied Oishiro-sama's curse, then that would mean admitting that Rena and the rest were the perpetrators. If I said that Rena and the rest weren't the perpetrators, then that would mean believing in Oishima-sama's curse. So either my distrust of my friends is valid, but it's my friends, how dare they try to hurt me, or I believe in a curse that's possibly not really maybe real, I don't know. By denying both those, I would be admitting that that I myself was losing it. Oh, there's a third possibility. The three options from which I couldn't choose became a trilemma of sorts. They mixed together and formed a whirlpool in my mind, making my head spin. Once again, I straightened myself and leaned my head back slightly to cool myself down. Calm down, Keiichi. Accept what has actually happened as reality. Stop thinking of anything more than that. But I couldn't help but think of it. How wonderful it would be if it turned out I was delirious and everything up until now was a figment of my imagination. Oishima-sama's curse wouldn't exist, and I would be the bestest buddies with Ren and the rest. I would have to be crazy. That was the first time in my life I'd ever wished for such a thing. Hey. Phone rang noisily downstairs. Generally there were no calls from me, so I never really answered the phone much. But since my parents were here, I had no choice. I squirmed off the bed and went downstairs. Hello, this is the Mahabara residence. Keiichi, this is Mom. I intuitively had a bad feeling about this. It was because I thought she was going to ask me to go out and buy some things. So I took the initiative. What? I don't mind having instant noodles for dinner. There's still a lot of them. The other day we went out as a family and bought a whole case of cup noodles. I wanted to get a bunch of different kinds, actually, but they refused since the individual packs were so expensive. So instead I got a whole case of the mega-sized pork bone and ginger flavor ones I liked. But my parents don't like strong flavors, and I didn't touch any of them, so the cupboards are still full of them. So you see, there really isn't a need to go shopping, right? Keiichi, I'm not asking you to go shopping. Both Mom and Daddy have to go to Tokyo right now because of work. Huh? Right now? This was really abrupt. No, we're already here. We left this afternoon. It was quite a distance to Tokyo from Himinazawa. Gunning it at full speed down the highway, we could still take 6 hours. Dad has a license, but since he doesn't like the highway, they likely took the train. It would have been taken longer. I'm thinking you might understand since you heard us speaking last night, but it has to do with Daddy's contract. Right now, things aren't going so smoothly. Now that she mentioned it, I did remember they talked about the giant... Now that she mentioned it, I did remember that they talked all that time about how his job prospects weren't looking so good. Daddy is really sensitive about things like this, so if we leave things as they are, it'll affect his work. Part of my father's particular fragile artistic personality, his emotions changed as easily as the fall sky. You could also say he couldn't take criticism. But something like that can be done over the phone. Keiichi, this is your father's job. Can you support him a little bit, please? Anyway, it's just faster to talk about in person, so there wouldn't be any misunderstandings. As her son, there was nothing more I could say once I started talking about work. But we'll be back tomorrow night. Keiichi, will you be fine on your own? It's not like I'll die or anything. Anyway. Keiichi, you shouldn't speak so lightly of dying. If there's something troubling you, just talk to us. I believe Mommy will be able to help out. Yesterday I did bring up if I died rather abruptly, so I suppose they were a little worried. But really, I was more depressed by the fact that nothing would be solved by telling them. But I didn't plan on dying. At least not while I knew nothing. I would never allow it. I won't die. I won't. I'll survive even if I have to gnaw my leg off. Yeah. See you then. Tomorrow morning, make sure to wake up. And eat your breakfast. And don't forget to take a bath and brush your teeth. Yeah. See you. The phone calls. Garbage. The call ended like that. Sometimes my parents went off to Tokyo for business meetings, but Tokyo was far away. They normally did things by the phone. The times they did go were normally planned out in advance, but it never happened this suddenly. I couldn't say that those circumstances didn't feel strange or rather unnatural. Anyway, I only needed to recognize the reality of the situation. That tonight, I was the only one in the house. And when my parents came back from work, I'd gone missing. Vanished. Looking back on the series of events in the previous 5 years involving Oishima-sama's curse, it wouldn't seem that strange at all. Come to think of it, it was getting pretty late. I don't think it was good that the only light on in the whole house was from my room on the second floor. It was the same as broadcasting to the enemy that my parents were gone and this was their chance. First, I ran to the living room, flicked on the lights, and turned on the TV to a reassuring volume. Next was the study. I similarly turned on the lights and some music. With this from the outside, it would look like my parents were here. Once again, I went through the house, checking to see if there were anything left unlocked, and I saw the veranda and the laundry still hanging there. I went pale. That would have made it too obvious. I need to take it down. I snatched the laundry haphazardly and erased all traces that my mother wasn't here. We should be fine now. The garage. They hadn't gone all the way to Tokyo by car, but they had gone up to Okinomiya Station. The garage was empty, wide open, and in plain sight. This was not good. I panicked and rushed out back to close the normally open garage door. We should be fine now. I need to get the paper. Mom always got the paper. Since I left in the afternoon, the evening paper was still out there. My premonition was correct. I pulled out everything from the mailbox and dropped it in the entryway. With all this for sure this time, it should be fine. Come to think of it, leaving the cupboard busted like that from my little freak out was kind of bad. I'll just say I tripped and fell, and the bat I was holding smashed into it. Even though just leaving its current state wasn't good, I should clean it up a little before Mom got back and scolded me. I remembered there was a broom and a dustpan in the closet. After as I was going to get them, the phone rang again. Hello, this is Marbara residence. Oh, Mrs. Cage-kun? Is your mother around? She isn't here at the moment. Idiot Cage Marbara, don't reveal that your parents are gone. You can follow up still. Calm down and take care of it. I think she'll be back soon. That wasn't a good response either. Now they might say, call again, or tell her to call them when she comes back. And that's fine. It wasn't anything important. Well then, sorry for the bother. The scenario I feared didn't play out. It was a sigh of relief. That call was fortunate in more ways than one. I'd have to deal with more telephone calls coming from my parents tonight. I was somehow able to deal with the phone call just for now, but I couldn't continue to rely on such poor improvisation. I need to make up a good story to explain that my parents were home but couldn't answer the phone at the moment. They were making tempura and couldn't step away right now. That wasn't good enough. They were sick and went to bed because they weren't feeling well. Is that going to be safe enough? I was thinking about it on my way back to my room and the phone rang once again. It was like they were calling because they knew I was going to lie. I didn't want to pick it up. But I knew I had to. They'd suspect my parents weren't here. I should have just taken the phone off the hook under the pretense that I didn't realize it was. But since the phone rang, I had to pick it up. I prepared myself and lifted the receiver. Hello? I stopped announcing that this was my bar residence. I had no reason to be kind to someone I didn't know the identity of. But unlike my uncouth voice, the person on the other side sounded goofy and lighthearted. Hello, my apologies for calling so late. This is Uishi from the Okinomiya bookstore. Relieved to hear the voice of that person. Uishi-san, is that you, my bar-san? Good evening. Good to hear you're doing well. But wait just a moment, please. I was gonna say, you got so much to tell him. Tell him all the tea. I grabbed the portable handset and rushed up to my room with it. It was the same no matter where I was since there was no one else at home, but I wanted to be in a spot where it felt a bit safer when speaking to the phone with Uishi-san. So sorry for the wait. How are things? Anything changed since then? Since then? When was that exactly? There was something about the brazen way it talked that rubbed me off the wrong way. Last time I spoke with Uishi-san was 2 days ago. The day I stayed home from school, met Uishi-san on the way back from the hospital, and we headed down to lunch and had talk. Then after that, Ren and Mion came to check up on me. Whenever I spoke to Uishi-san, they always knew about it. It was like that since the first time I met him. Today's phone call may well be found out by them as well. Hello? Can you hear me, Marbara-san? Yeah, sorry. What did you say? I asked if anything's changed since last time. There wasn't an answer, so I got a bit worried. Not really. Words stopped in my throat. There was a ton of stuff that happened. All of it baffling. What should I talk about? I didn't understand any of it, but I should try asking. If I didn't ask now, I may never have another chance. This night where my parents weren't home, I had no guarantees I would make it through the night safely after all. Well, Oishi-san, it seems that someone is after me. Really? It could be just a coincidence, but the day I missed school when I was sick, 2 of them came to check up on me. Which 2? Ren and Mion. They started asking about how I had lunch with you. What's next? They left me some mochi when they started to visit, but there was a needle inside. Fortunately, I somehow didn't swallow it. I wonder, could that have been just a threat? About the needle. Was it just one of those common sewing needles that you see all the time? There was a hole to the thread string through. No, not that, my bar-san. The needle itself. That's evidence. It could be used as proof that they threatened you. Where is that needle? Oh god. Probably thrown away and all gone now. That's right, that's it. I dropped the receiver and rushed downstairs. When I tossed the moichi, I had overlooked out of terror, but that needle was a valuable piece of evidence. I had certainly thrown the moichi needle at the wall together. If it was there, then it would be in the living room wall. But my prudent mother had cleaned that living room wall, and there was not a trace of moichi left on it. Could it be that it dropped in the gap between the wall and the carpet? I frantically searched, running my palm along the carpet, but nothing turned up. I tried moving the sofa and desks, pulling the carpet, then flapping it around, but I couldn't find the needle. Did my mom clean up everything without noticing it? It was just 2 days ago. I didn't know what day they collected the burnable trash, but it still may be in the trash bin in the kitchen. I rushed to the kitchen, opened up the lid, pail, and poured out all the contents. But even at a glance, I could tell it would be difficult to find the needle in this pile of trash. I was looking for a needle in a trash stack. I know I'll try running my hand through it. It was a bit gross, but I was looking for a needle. Without a small prick. I was able to find it. Pretty tactless method, but it was the quickest. I held my breath and started striking the pile of trash with my hand. Though it flew about, there was nothing more disgusting than this. But it was not the time to be concerned about such details. I continued on for a while, but nothing had turned up. I wanted to search more thoroughly, but I was still on the phone. I couldn't keep Uishi-san waiting for too long. Later, when Mom got back, I had to ask her if there was a needle. Hastily, I began scribbling on a notepad affixed to the refrigerator with a magnet. Was there a needle? I scrawled out the words with a red pen, then dashed back upstairs where I had been keeping Uishi-san waiting for far too long. Hello? How did it go? I couldn't find it. I was really overwhelmed back then, and I see. It would be great if you could find it. Keep it safe. That's right, the needle wasn't the only incident. I had to tell him about this morning with the hit and run. Also, Uishi-san, that isn't all. Actually, this morning, that van was definitely aiming for me. I could say that without a question due to the circumstances at that time. Did you see the license plate? I can search for it from here. Damn. I just flipped out yelling at him back then, but I didn't look at the plate. What failures on my part with the needle and the plate number? I was so focused on protecting myself that I let some of the most important details slip out from my grasp. I punched my pillow, annoyed at how worthless I was. I'm sorry. I don't know much more than that. It was a white van. Nothing to fret about, Marbao-san. Anyone would be shaken up after being hit. I guess all this isn't a coincidence, is it? Uishi-san started to hem and haw over the other end. I could imagine him folding his arms. Also, Rena's acting strange. Also, what Rena did on the way home today, asking why I was so much like Satoshi-kun. Now I could say it with confidence that Rena knew what happened to Satoshi. She knew that there was more to it than just simply disappearing. Rena knows. You know something regarding what happened to Satoshi, the kid who was demoned away last year? What would that be exactly? Rena said I was the same as Satoshi. She said something to the effect of the way things are going, I'll end up with the same fate as Satoshi. Fate, you say? Exactly what kind of fate does she say would befall you? Transferring out, she said. Transferring out? Rena said Satoshi transferred out. So, given how things are going with me, I'll transfer out too. Uishi let out a stern sigh and grumbled loudly. Marbara-san, that was probably some sort of threat, or maybe the type of warning. I thought so too. At that point, I started to think, would it be prudent to sum up everything that had happened up until now with machinations of some human perpetrator? Other than the theory being Rena and the others, I was left with Oishio-sama's curse actually existing as the only other explanation. Of course, I couldn't tell that to Uishi-san. Except Rena's strange behavior could be proof of other scenarios. Whether it was Oishio-sama's curse being real or everything being part of a conspiracy committed by all the villagers, Rena was involved. Rena had to know something. Rena was suspicious. What exactly was Rena? I couldn't help but think she was somehow involved with the prior string of mysterious deaths. I seem to recall that Uishi-san admitted that he had dug into Rena's past a little. He was probably downplaying it when he said a little, meaning he had actually dug pretty deep, most likely. I wanted to hear about Rena. I wanted to know what happened to her previous school, among other things that were still unknown to me. We already know about her breaking windows in the school and talking about that she believed it was Oishio-sama's curse doing it. I don't know, I guess you could ask for more details about that, I don't know. If Rena was somebody I should suspect, no, not that. I wanted to know the truth. That seems to be the theme here. Tell me the truth. The truth. You can't handle the truth. I'm not being stupid. Tonight I was alone in this huge house. Even though I said I couldn't count on them, I had lost the security I felt I had just by my parents being around. It wasn't like this house was some sort of fortress or castle. If a malicious person decided to use brute force, they could easily gain entry. There were no other residences close to the Marbar residence. No one would be able to hear anything, no matter how loud it was. I had never felt so much resentment towards my father's artistic temperament and the fact that he had this house built in such a remote location as I did right now. Oh, balls. I wondered if I would still be here by tomorrow morning. So I had to ask, right now, because I had no idea when the next chance would come. Uishi-san, I have something I wanted to ask about. Please don't keep anything from me. Sure, ask away. I'm just ignoring that doorbell, I guess. Even though he was so far away at the other end of the line, this was the most reliable he had ever felt. I wanted to ask about Rena, about what happened at her previous school. Actually, regarding Rena's... I noticed a sound that had been going on for a while now. Since I was too focused on the call, I hadn't paid attention to it at first, but I realized it was the doorbell. The time was 7 o'clock. It was past the time the postman would be making a delivery, and past any sensible time for a neighbor to be visiting. I considered just acting like nobody was home, but that wouldn't be good. That would ruin all the work I put into making it look like my parents were home. I need to answer the door. Hello? Marabara-san? Sorry, someone seems to be at the door. I'm going to go see who it is. A guest? I see, my apologies. Should be in this phone call now. That would be a problem. No, I'll be back in a second. Do you mind if I just leave the phone back on? That's fine, I don't mind. I dropped the handset on my bed and dashed down to the door. I needed to make up a good excuse to get them to leave. I had a hunch it was the lady who called right before Oishi-san did. In which case it'd be one of those neighbors who's friends with my mom. I'll just say that my mom's not feeling well, went off to bed early. That would be the easiest option. It would be hard for her to ask me to wake my mom up if she's not feeling well. I'll continue to ring at irregular intervals. If someone couldn't answer after you ring the bell so much, you'd normally give up and go home, wouldn't you? Yeah. Without removing the chain, I opened the door slightly and peered out at the visitor. A chill ran down my spine. Knew it. Somewhere deep inside I had prepared for this moment. I tried to escape by imagining it was the easiest person to deal with, one of my mom's friends.